This is James Randi, and you're listening to The Skeptic Zone.
Welcome to The Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 800. Oh boy, for the 4th of February 2024. Richard Saunders coming to you this week once again from Oakland, California in the makeshift, do-it-yourself Skeptic Zone on the Move studios. Coming up on this week's show to celebrate 800 episode, Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Canada takes a look at the number 800. Does it have mystical, magical, mysterious, and other words starting with M powers? Does it? 800? I wonder. Find out when you can count on Adrienne with Adrienne Hill. Following that, it's a little collection of greetings, well wishes from various skeptical friends and podcasters around the world. And then we have Maynard's spooky action. Maynard will be looking back at many years of his reports and interviews on the Skeptic Zone podcast to celebrate episode 800. Then we have some more greetings and well wishes from podcasters and friends. Then Adrienne comes back to read the Australian Skeptics newsletter written by Tim Mendham. Even more well wishes and greetings from friends and Brian Dunning coming up after that. And to finish off the show, back to the Trove archives, where we're going to be looking at references to the old favourite, what would we do without them? That's another thought. Psychics, so-called psychics, people who think they have mystical powers or know full well they don't, but pretend they do. There's just too much to talk about this episode, I think. Too much to talk about. Tune in. Stay tuned. Don't switch off. At the end of the episode, there'll be some more announcements from me. But now it's time for me to run downstairs and have a nice bowl of wheat cereal with milk and a coffee. While I do that, I hope you enjoy episode 800 of The Skeptic Zone. You can count on Adrienne with Adrienne Hill.
Hello everyone, this is Adrienne Hill, your numerical navigator and skeptic scribe, broadcasting from the cozy confines of Skookum Studios in Calgary, Alberta. But hold on to your critical thinking caps, folks, because today we've got a mathematical milestone that's more exciting than discovering proof that unicorns are actually prime numbers. Join me in a round of applause, a fanfare of skepticism, and possibly a spontaneous whoop and giggle as we celebrate the 800th episode of The Skeptic Zone with the one and only Richard Saunders. That's right, 800 episodes of investigating, interviewing, reporting, running downstairs, and jokes about maple syrup and the former dentist, now skeptical fairy godmother angel of the internet. So, in this segment, we will try to calculate just how many crystals it takes to summon a skeptical ghost and discuss some fun 800 facts and some Barnum filler surrounding numerology. To start off, there are several Guinness Book of World Records involving the number 800. And here are some of the more obscure ones that I found. This past December, a Guinness World Record was attempted on the island of Jersey off the coast of France by lighting over 800 recycled Christmas trees in a maze. They are still awaiting adjudication. The previous record was set in 2019 in Shelton, otherwise known as Christmastown, USA, with 797 lit trees. In 2022, a world record was set in Mexico City where several local chefs made an 800-kilogram torta sandwich in 2 minutes and 9 seconds. People could then purchase a slice of the sandwich for 35 pesos and choose from a variety of fillings, including pork, beef, chicken, buffalo, ostrich, venison, and crocodile. Now going back in time to the year 2000 in Maui, Baskin and Robbins constructed the world's largest ice cream scoop pyramid that weighed 800 pounds, was 4 feet high, and stayed in place for 45 minutes. There was no mention of whether or not anyone got to eat the ice cream or what flavors were used. Moving on to UFOs. On June 1st, 2023, CNN reported that the NASA team studying UFO or UAP data had noted that the number of UAP cases had jumped to over 800 cases from the 650 cases that were reported by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick of the U.S. Department of Defense in April when he testified to Congress. Does this mean that the alien invasion has started? According to Dan Evans, Assistant Deputy Associate Administrator for Research at NASA's Science Mission Directorate, quote, "There is absolutely no convincing evidence for extraterrestrial life associated with UAPs. I think when we stood up this incredible team, we did so in recognition of the fact that we need to get to an answer without assuming an origin going in," end quote. And now for some sports trivia. For all you cricket lovers out there, you might be aware that there was a film released last year called 800. According to Wikipedia, it is an Indian Tamil language film about Sri Lankan cricketer Muttiah Muralidharan, who set a record for taking 800 wickets in Test cricket. Being Canadian and not familiar with cricket, I have to assume that this was a remarkable feat. So on my next trip to Australia, I must get Richard to take me to a cricket match. For most goals scored in top-level association football competitions, and if you live in Canada or the US, soccer competitions, there are only 2 players with career goals scored over 800. In second place is Lionel Messi with 821 goals, and in first place is Cristiano Ronaldo with 873 goals. Now on to a sport most Canadians and some Australians will be familiar with, hockey, specifically ice hockey, which is not to be confused with field hockey, floor hockey, roller hockey, or underwater hockey. And yes, this is a real thing. If you don't believe me, check out the hockey Wikipedia page for pictures. Only 3 NHL or National Hockey League players have scored over 800 career goals. Gordie Howe scored 801 goals, Alex Ovechkin scored 830 goals, and the great one, Wayne Gretzky, scored 894 goals. Now let's move on to investigate some numerology. On March 6, 2022, on episode 700, I talked about angel numbers. As a refresher, angel numbers usually occur in groups of 3, so you will hear me say the number 800. Then you will go to a coffee shop where the coffee costs $8 or 8.00. Then you will discover some 800 jars of Manuka honey for sale for $800 per jar. Oh, I think that's 4 things. Oh well, we can just disregard me saying 800 at the beginning and start counting with the coffee to make it fit. According to ChatGPT, quote, "The angel number 800 is a combination of the energies and attributes of the numbers 8 and 0. The number 8 is often associated with abundance, prosperity, success, and the manifestation of wealth. It also signifies the concept of karma, the law of cause and effect. The number 0 magnifies the vibrations of the numbers it appears with, intensifying their influence. Additionally, 0 is often seen as a symbol of potential and choice, suggesting that you have the power to create your own reality," end quote. The site astrology.com agrees with GPT, but also goes into the negative aspects of the angel number. Quote, "While the angel number 800 typically has positive connotations, it can also have negative meanings if ignored. If you continuously ignore the guidance of your angels and refuse to be open to new opportunities for prosperity and success, you may experience financial struggles and missed opportunities," end quote. So if you have an angel number 800 and don't find success, then it's your own fault for missing opportunities. Let's cover all possibilities to get some hits and then blame the victim. Next, let's address the question of how many crystals it takes to summon a skeptical ghost. You might think that my research found it was 800, but sadly, no. Consulting ChatGPT again, the exact number of crystals required is a closely guarded secret within the mystical and pseudoscientific community. But it has been discovered on forums on the internet that the optimal number of crystals to summon a skeptical ghost is said to be precisely 42. Well, that makes sense, since it is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything, according to Douglas Adams in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Good one, ChatGPT. And to finish, as Richard leads the zone into the 800s, I will playfully ponder the angelic allure of the number 800. In the future, will skeptics have developed the supernatural ability to predict the lottery numbers using a secret code that's hidden in the frequency of 800 kilohertz radio waves? There! The angel number has been mentioned 3 times, so I had better stop now. Otherwise, I might jeopardize Richard's and my prosperity and success. Congratulations, Richard! I look forward to many more episodes of laughter, learning, and skeptical inquiry. I now raise my glass of A&W Zero Sugar Root Beer in my Skeptic Zone mug in your honor. Cheers! Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill.
Hey,
Richard! We hear you're coming up to 800 episodes.
What an achievement! Keep up the good work.
And thank you so much for the inspiration you give us too.
On to the next 800 and more.
So lots of love from the team of
the European Skeptics Podcast. The real ESP experience.
Crazy, you're driving me crazy. I don't know how you can believe.
Hi, this is Mike.
Marsh.
And Alice.
From the Skeptics with a K podcast, and we're here to congratulate the Skeptic Zone on 800 episodes.
800
so many
episodes. That is a very, very long time. Because I think we've congratulated Richard on a milestone in the past.
200 episodes.
Was it 200 episodes?
200 episodes.
What, did I do that one?
No, that was with
That
Colin.
was pre-me.
Colin. That was back when podcasts were running like a hand crank. Before you had like batteries and electricity, you had to like hand crank the podcast up, wind it up like a radio. Yeah.
And in fact, when we promoted Skeptic Zone last time, and it's a great show, Skeptic Zone, I love listening to it. But when we promoted Skeptic Zone last time, we did exactly the same thing. When we're
consistent, if nothing else. You know, we don't need to reinvent things.
We already tell the same jokes on Skeptics with K all the time, so
That's true.
It is not without precedent.
That's true. What listeners don't know is Marsh is going to tell this joke again down the pub.
That's true. Absolutely true.
Later on.
No, but it's a huge achievement. 800 episodes.
It is.
I mean, that is like, what, 15
incredible
years
dedication.
or something like that? More than 15 years,
I
it
can't
must be.
fathom that number of episodes.
What I really love about Skeptic Zone is you have so many different correspondents from all not just different parts of Australia, all around the world who bring interesting stuff. I think it's a really lovely way of doing a show. And I always enjoy listening to it.
No, by the time we get to 800 episodes, I'll be 60. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
I'll be 60 or dead, possibly.
Or dead.
Could be one or the other.
You could be both. You could have died at 60 and then you'll be both. Anyway, congratulations, Richard.
Fantastic stuff. Thanks very much.
Congratulations.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Despite advice to the contrary, Richard Saunders has reached 800 episodes of the Skeptic Zone. That's right, everyone said, I don't know, and he went, I can't hear you. And so here we are, 800 episodes later. Look, who could forget those great moments of the show? Well, I'm sure I'll think of one or two later, but there was the time They Might Be Giants were on.
Come on and meet the elements. Make
Look, of course, they might be giants. The two Johns, Flansburgh, who we're speaking to, and Mr. Linnell, they will be touring across Australia in November. Go see them. They formed in 82, according to Wikipedia. My favourite album of theirs is Apollo 18. My favourite track on that album is Fingertips. Their last album was Nanobots. My favourite song on that was Tesla. There, that's about me.
Well, we've had a new album out since then called Glean. And I think all your new favourite songs are on that.
Oh, okay. Well, I will update my software in my brain on that immediately after the interview.
Yeah. Although, strangely enough, we actually have 2 more albums coming out in the next 4 months.
Well, yes, you've got a greatest hits double CD coming out fairly shortly in Australia. 50 million they might be done. Yes, I've had a lot of fun. I remember the day we thought up Spooky Action at a Distance. Not the name of this show, but the actual quantum theory of it. Man, that was an afternoon I won't forget for a while. But, of course, who could forget my interview with Uri Geller? Oh, hang on, no, it wasn't you, it was the other guy. Oh, the amazing Randy. That's right, when I asked him all sorts of things at TAM in 2012 on episode 196. Well, look, here's a guy I spoke to last time at TAM Australia, the amazing, incredible guy with the beard. Randy, how are you?
I'm doing very well for an old fellow of 83.
Yeah, look, you're the same age as my dad, and my dad loves going to the doctor all the time. I think you've probably had enough of doctors for the time being, haven't you?
Well, yes, I have had a few experiences in that direction, such as, colon cancer, chemotherapy for 6 months, and a few things like that, and a double heart attack and a double bypass.
Double heart attack?
A double heart, yes. I don't fool around. Yeah, I do things thoroughly when I do them.
But you seem to have so much energy. Is that why you had the double heart attack? You're pushing yourself a bit hard?
This is entirely an act.
There was that time David Carradine wanted to beat me up. Oh, hang on, that was another show. Anyway, look, I've had a lot of fun with Richard over the years at skeptical conferences across the world and even in places like Melbourne, talking at conventions about what people were doing, why they were doing, what they were skeptical about, why they neck beards and not neck beards. All sorts of major topics have been raised. Way back in 2011, episode 127, I spoke to Robbie B about being the recipient of a heart transplant. You can talk about your worlds of science fiction. You can talk about your Star Trek. You can talk about your Star Wars. You can fly around the universe in a blue phone box. But when you have one heart transplanted from one human being to another, and the guy who got it's Robbie here. Man, Robbie, I've known you for a while. I haven't seen you for a while. Only 5 weeks ago, you had another heart put inside your chest. People with hip operations don't get up that fast. You're like, man, what's it like?
Oh, mate, it's fantastic. I mean, really, for being so sick and suddenly out of nowhere to get told you're going to live.
Robbie, was it a degenerative heart disease or a specific disease you had?
I had swine flu. So basically I had the flu, and from the flu caused major heart damage, and I died about 5 times. So it was pretty heavy. I mean, it was... I just got a photo of the Green Reaper, so I had to get out because it was a Green Reaper walking around the convention. So I had to get out one.
And you got a photo of yourself giving him the finger, no doubt.
Yeah.
Not this time, buddy. Because we hear about how dangerous the swine flu was, and most people go, oh, yeah. And in episode 140, Gary, my good friend Gary Kennedy, the food inspector, or as we like to call him, a meat handler. Well, he used to be a meat handler. Now he inspects the meat. Can I say that? By the way, a lot of great interviews with Richard you haven't heard because he's edited stuff out. Naughty Richard. But congratulations on all Skeptic Zone things. Skeptical, unskeptical, critical, uncritical, all sorts of things. What a great show. 800. How many things have you met that there's been 800 of and they've been consistently okay? Yeah, hey, think about that, hey? Yeah, hey. And, of course, it was the first time I met George Harab at the Sydney Skeptics Convention as well. And, you know, we've become good, solid, one-way internet friends.
Maynard says hello.
Hello?
Maynard just says hello.
Hello, Maynard.
Whether if he's feeling high, if he's feeling low, Maynard just says hello. Hello.
So, may the skeptics bless the Skeptic Zone and all that sail in him, her, them.
Hello, Richard. Ross Blotcher here from Oh No, Ross and Carrie, and Wow, 800 episodes? That's amazing. I think by the time this plays, we will have just reached our 400th, so you're way ahead of us in many ways. But thank you so much for all you do to highlight interesting stories, interesting people in the skeptical movement, and always doing it with a great sense of humor and good cheer. Wishing you another 800 episodes. Oh, goodness, that sounds like a lot of work. That sounds like more of a curse. Well, keep doing what you're doing, and we'll look forward to all the future episodes. And I'll see you in VR mini golf.
Hey, Richard. Rob Palmer here to congratulate you on reaching 800 weekly episodes. Way back in early 2018, when I interviewed you for the Skeptical Inquirer, in an article titled Celebrating 500, little did I know, because I'm not psychic, no one is, that the Zone would still be going strong at 800. Nor did I know at the time that I'd actually get to contribute to the podcast and get to work with you on another one of your long-term projects. Helping with the Great Australian Psychic Prediction Project and doing public talks about it has been a privilege. I'm looking forward to future collaboration and to another 800 episodes, at least, of the Skeptic Zone. Maybe I can interview you again when you reach the big 1,000. By my math, that'll be November 2027. Mark your calendar.
Everyone, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada, to read the highlights from the Australian Skeptics newsletter. This is newsletter number 190. But don't forget, you can subscribe to this newsletter and get it delivered to your inbox every other week, complete with links to all the stories mentioned. Just go to skeptics.com.au to sign up. Now, let's see what Tim Mendham has for us this week. Hi all, says Tim. One of the biggest concerns in the news over the last few weeks has been the rise in measles cases, particularly in countries which had been declared measles-free, meaning endemic measles, not the imported version. But what the spread does indicate is that low or lower vaccination rates allow such diseases to spread, which means the fight against the anti-vaxxers is never over. Read on, Tim. Okay, Tim, I'll do just that. What a sobering thought that is. Surge in measles cases. Countries that were formerly thought to be measles-free are now seeing widespread outbreaks of the disease, thanks to low vaccination rates and international travel. Cases are appearing in Europe, the UK, the US, Asia, and Australia. BBC defends Dragon's Den over alternative medicine. The BBC has defended the inclusion of a wellness business in Dragon's Den after complaints from health groups. Campaigners for myalgic encephalomyelitis, or ME, complained the show promoted unfounded claims that an ear acupuncture product could help the condition. The BBC said products being featured on the program should not be seen as an endorsement of them. A disclaimer on the product's website states that the product is not used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So typical. Guerlain's luxury skincare offering sparks controversy. Pseudoscientific marketing or a bold innovation in quantum science? Luxury skincare brand Guerlain has come under fire for its bold claims that its new $740 cream boasts the innovation of quantum science. While some online have declared it a marvel, others are labeling it a misguided marketing attempt, not to mention pseudoscientific. Don't think I'll be buying that anytime soon. Pentagon UFO investigator versus Congress. Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick had a few choice words for the public on his way out the door of the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Quote, "The result of this recent whirlwind of tall tales, fabrication, and second-hand or third-hand retellings of the same was a social media frenzy and a significant amount of congressional and executive time and energy spent on investigating these so-called claims. As if we didn't have anything better to do," end quote. Tall aliens videos. And I saw this being looked at by Kenny Biddle. It was quite interesting. This is an article on a couple of fuzzy, very fuzzy videos of aliens, one near a Miami shopping center and another of a giant figure on a hilltop, both of which apparently went hugely viral. The article starts off discussing the videos without actually linking to them, which is annoying. Then it gets into looking at the nature of evidence for tall aliens and the overblown public reaction of such claims, which is interesting. And for what it's worth, the Miami video can be seen in this news report. And it's totally unconvincing. In fact, it's hard to see anything as it's so far away. And this is evidence? Skepticamp is back for 2024. The Surf Coast Skepticamp 9 will be held on Saturday, February 24th, 2024, at the Aries Inlet Community Centre in Victoria, about 125 kilometres from the Melbourne CBD or 50 kilometres past Geelong. The location is a chance to have a brief sea change, perhaps a weekend away, and enjoy the delights of the Great Ocean Road while enriching your lives skeptically. The program will be headlined by newly crowned Australian Skeptic of the Year, Paul Gallagher. Skepticamps are about involvement and contribution, involving 20-minute presentations volunteered by enthusiastic speakers on something that would interest a skeptical audience. So put your thinking caps on and add your name to the list. Send offers to present or thoughts and ideas to Don Hyatt at sgofv@gmail.com. And I do recommend that you either give a talk or attend one of these Skepticamps. I had a blast at the Monterey County Skepticamp that was held at the beginning of January in California. We're working on the March 2024 issue of The Skeptic, but in the meantime, the December 2023 issue is out and about. Oh, Tim. Should I say oot and boot? It looks at some famous or infamous UFO and haunting claims, including an in-depth look at the recent, quote, "I've not seen dead alien bodies, but I know they're there," end quote, kerfuffle, plus a whole lot more. New subscriptions start with the next issue, but you can also order a copy of the most recent one as a treat. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to do so. You can sign up for a hard copy or a digital edition, or both, since the digital is offered free to those who take up the hard copy version. Contact the editor if you're not sure if your existing subscription needs renewing, or check your email. I just got my reminder to renew. Skeptics in Action. If you have any ideas for stories or want to contribute to Skeptics communications, such as the magazine or Facebook page, or just have something you want to get off your chest, then you're welcome to get in touch. New leads should be sent to newstips@skeptics.com.au. Submissions, comments, and suggestions should go to editor@skeptics.com.au. Items of interest. Leading Russian geneticist suggests sin shortens lives. Russia's Minister of Science and Higher Education has removed Alexander Kudryavtsev, the head of a prestigious genetics institute, who stirred controversy by asserting that ancient humans lived for centuries and the reduced lifespan of modern humans is a result of ancestral sins. Kudryavtsev led the Vavilov Institute of General Genetics at the Russian Academy of Sciences. Oh dear. A Guide to Apparitions. This is a long and fairly skeptical article on ghostly apparitions and how they have evolved over the years. The more science is applied, the more ephemeral they become. Another story that strides the skeptic-believer line. Explaining paranormal temperature fluctuations. Cold or warm spots are a common indicator of ghostly presence, but there are problems like physics, energy, measurement, and what do non-physical entities have to say about it? This is yet another story that has enough skepticism to possibly warrant being up there instead of down here. The top 10 most haunted places in the world. This is a bold claim, especially as half of them we haven't heard of. Nothing in Australia, and the photo of Edinburgh Castle looks suspiciously like an American homestead. Well, that is all for now. And to celebrate the 800th episode of the Skeptic Zone, I thought I would include a fair, neat Canadian historical fact that I discovered from a CBC Canada article dated March 22nd, 2017. Between 1663 and 1673, 800 single young women survived the ocean voyage, immigrating from France to what would become Canada because of a scheme hatched by King Louis XIV to increase the population of what was called New France at the time. These women, known as filles du roi, or daughters of the king, came from poor backgrounds and many were orphans. They were given free passage, a dowry, and a hope chest filled with clothing and sewing supplies. Upon arrival, these women sailed down the St. Lawrence River, stopping at each community, checking out possible husbands. Yes, these women were allowed to choose who they married in a time when this did not usually happen. Though the selection was not great, since the whole population of New France was 6,000 people, and it had a disproportionate number of priests. However, this program, which also included a financial incentive for families with more than 10 children, oh dear, led to a population explosion. And according to this article, which was titled, "Most French Canadians Are Descendants from These 800 Women," the article claimed that, quote, 2/3 of today's French Canadians can trace their ancestry back to one of these 800 women, end quote. What courageous and strong women these must have been. What an interesting number 800 has turned out to be. This is Adrienne Hill, signing off.
Hey Richard, congratulations on 800 episodes of The Skeptic Zone. From me, Brian Dunning at Skeptoid. 800 is a big number representing an incredible amount of work over a lot of years. Did you know Skeptoid is well into the 900s? Makes 800 seem quaint by comparison. Still, it's a good start. It's a very solid number, considering this is only your first go. Nothing to be ashamed about. So please, keep at it. You'll get there. What you've done here truly is a very good try.
$800? Congratulations from Susan Gerbic and the Gorilla Skeptics. Week after week, you and your team of zoners continue to put out quality content. Thank you for all the hard work and dedication. And remember, 5, 5, 5.
OMG, he's done it again.
Who? Richard Saunders. Done what?
Pumped out another 100 podcasts.
No way, that guy is a machine.
Congratulations, Richard Saunders, and the whole Skeptic Zone team. But congratulations to all of you on 800 episodes.
We at Squaring the Strange salute you, fellow skeptical podcaster.
Hi, my name's Tim Mendham. You might know me from the Book of Tim, but I'm also Executive Officer for Australian Skeptics. And here I am sitting in my studio in Skeptics Towers. And we have the totally unrenovated studio here. I've put 2.5 egg cartons on the wall, and I'm using my Stun Miser tin can with a string to record this. But I'd just like to say congratulations to Richard Saunders for 800 episodes, if you like, of the Skeptic Zone. It's a great achievement for a great fellow. So well done, Richard. All the best from Skeptics Towers.
On episode 800 of the Skeptic Zone to dive back into the digital archive of Trove and associated online and physical references of newspapers and magazines and gazettes and periodicals and menus and who knows what. A collection of history we can access, study, and hopefully learn something. And I've discovered some more interesting things to relate to you. Generally speaking about skeptical topics, skeptical issues, the things that interest us. And the first item comes from 1992, on the 21st of June, in the Sydney Morning Herald. ESP fails its big test on radio. And this is a story by Peter Pockley. In the first Australian experiment to test the widely held belief in extrasensory perception, ESP, on a nationwide basis, Brisbane-based psychologists have found no evidence for the phenomenon. The test was conducted with transmissions of 6 questions on ABC Radio National's science show 3 weeks ago. Preliminary results were broadcast yesterday. The 2 researchers, Dr. Ken White, a senior lecturer at the University of Queensland, and his graduate student Rebecca Story, were swamped with about 5,000 written responses to so-called thought transferences broadcast on the program. So far, more than 3,500 responses have been analysed. Dr. White said this was only the 3rd such experiment conducted on radio, and the first since the 1920s, in the United States in 1924 and the United Kingdom in 1927. He said there had been a few tests conducted on TV, in the US in 1958 and the UK in 1963, but these had involved believers in the phenomenon. And I'll break in here quickly to say he might have missed the fact that in 1989, James Randi conducted some live tests of this sort of nature, more or less, on American television. The ABC broadcast test was conducted live, but with some responses coming from recorded replays of the program in different time zones. During the tests, Ms. Story concentrated hard on numbers, a letter, a playing card, a colour, and 2 geometric shapes. Listeners were invited to write down what they thought she was seeing. They were also asked to rate their strength of belief in ESP. And I'll break in here quickly to say, you really don't hear that term anymore. It was very popular in the late 60s through the 70s into the 80s, mostly in the 70s, I think. And the term ESP has really fallen out of favour. You simply don't hear that term anymore. The most popular term you'll hear now generally is simply psychic. The most remarkable result of the test is that of the 3,537 responses analysed to yesterday, only 5 respondents, or 0.1%, got 2 answers correct and none scored more than 2. Responses came from people aged less than 10 to over 80 years, with a median age of 45. Females accounted for 53% and males 44%, with a 3% failing to nominate their gender. Dr. White said the information transmitted was selected by first avoiding well-known stereotypes or popular, which are used by stage magicians such as Uri Geller. That's interesting here that they would use the term stage magician for Uri Geller, and they've spelt his name wrong. In the paragraph I've just read, it's spelled Y-E-R-I, I think, because some of the text is a little hard to read, nevertheless. In the first test, I am looking for a number in the range 1 to 10. The correct answer, number 1, was obtained by 42 respondents, 1.2% of the total. The most common answer was 7, nominated by nearly a quarter of the respondents. Breaking in again to say that's very, very good and important to know that in tests like this, certain numbers, certain colours, certain shapes. I think when the Zener cards are used, the wavy line, the circle, the cross, etc., most people tend to choose the star sign, the sign of the, how many points? I think it's got 5 points. The other number test, I am looking at a card with a number between 10 and 50 with 2 odd digits, which are not the same, produced a 5% success rate for the number 13. Nearly 1/3 nominated 37. Dr. White said the popularity of this number replicated very clearly results obtained by psychologists overseas. In the alphabet test, only 17 people chose correctly the letter Y. L was the most common choice. Dr. White said this was the first time this preference had been established. Testing such preferences, he said, was important in designing the ergonomics of control systems and illustrates the serious psychological reasons for the study. The playing card test produced a similar low success. Ms. Story's concentration on the 4 of clubs was nominated by 55 people, 1.6%. 1/3 of the respondents chose red as the colour of a car, whereas Ms. Story was visualising a purple car. Nonetheless, it was clear that there was a quite high level of belief in ESP. The interim score for a very high belief, 15%, was, however, matched almost exactly by no belief, 14.5%. Dr. White said he was not a parapsychologist, a person who investigates unusual phenomena. He and Ms. Story were basically skeptical about ESP, but they wanted to see if it was possible to replicate previous studies. Nobody has ever managed to replicate an ESP experiment, Dr. White said, and these results are no exception. The science show is rebroadcast on ABC Radio National tomorrow night at 7:45. And I wonder, I don't know, it's probably not possible to get that episode being 32 years ago. Again, it just illustrates how important it is to have these reports and the interesting information we can glean from this with the choice of numbers and the choice of letters of the alphabet, etc. Now, here's a very strange one from 1984 on the 5th of November in the pages of the Sydney Morning Herald by Tracy Alban, Fortune Tellers Advance into the Computer Age. And if I remember correctly, in 1984, home computers were really just starting to take off in a big way with such machines as the Commodore 64. In Australia, we had a computer, a short-lived but very popular computer called the Micro B. Apple II, I think, was available at that time. And another computer, which was short-lived, called the BBC computer. And it wasn't long before, maybe in the very next year or a year after that, that the Apple Macintosh became available. Mr. Michael Philip Moore, a professional palmist, recently traded in his crystal ball for an Amist executive computer. And I'm unfamiliar with that computer. Looks like it was one of the many emerging home computers at the time. It had to happen, he says. With computers finding their way into most industries, it was only a matter of time before the occult turned to technology. On most days, Michael can be found at the end of the Grand Arcade in Pitt Street being a popular shopping area in Sydney, shuffling tarot cards with one hand and operating a keyboard with the other. Before we sit down, Michael warns me that the computer is not as thorough as the human touch. Even so, he says, people are surprised at its accuracy. And he says, it's a lot of fun too. First, a 12-month tarot card reading complete with printout. I shuffle the cards and cut them, and Michael records their numbers. I haven't worked out a way for the computer to do that yet. Then it's over to the computer. There are 78 cards in the tarot pack, all of them numbered. The program Michael wrote, based on the traditional meanings of the cards, covers any sequence. He thinks there are more than 28 million possible combinations for each year's reading. We'll have to take his word for that. I know that if you shuffle a standard deck of 52 playing cards, the possible combinations, the number is extraordinary. In fact, I think it's used as an example of large numbers, and if people were shuffling decks since the beginning of the universe, it's still unlikely that two decks would be in the same sequence. It's quite amazing. Within seconds, the computer starts feeding out a month-by-month prediction. They are always good readings, he says, but it is entertainment at the same time. Each tarot reading should be taken with a grain of salt. My card for November is the Juggler. This is a good month, according to the computer. The card you chose symbolizes self-reliance, imagination, subtlety, and dexterity. There could be an opportunity to do something new, to make your own decisions, and you may also complete some task you have been neglecting. Hands up all those people who are thinking classic Barnum statements there. Next, a palm reading which Michael calls a, quote, computer-assisted hand analysis, end quote. Examining my hand, he keys in the answers to 10 questions, including the color of my palm, the length of my fingers, and the suppleness of my thumb. Again, it's over to the computer, and within seconds a 4-page printout appears. Pink, incidentally, is the best color for hands. It indicates a bright, cheerful, and vivacious personality. Or so the computer says. Michael has also written programs for biorhythms, a biometric compatibility assessment, and numerology. He has even put the famous luster color test, a psychological analysis based on your color choice, on disk. Although he is using an Amherst, Michael stresses that his programs would suit any computer. I wouldn't necessarily recommend Amherst, he says. The idea of computerizing fortune-telling was something Michael had been thinking about for a long time. I had the idea in the back of my mind for a while. It was great to write the programs, but I don't want to spend the rest of my life pushing buttons. Instead, Michael is looking to sell the programs or the computer and programs as a package. He has other ideas for the programs, but is keeping them a secret. Even so, he says, a vending machine application is one possibility. The profit possible from computerized fortune-telling is enormous, according to Michael. After the initial expense of buying a computer with a substantial memory and printer, and the time taken to write the programs, the rest is profit, except for the cost of the paper. Profitability can be immense, he said. And what's interesting about this story is if you go to a Mind Body Wallet fair these days, you see very few computers. People still prefer to sit down face-to-face with a fortune teller or somebody claiming to be psychic. Where I have seen computers in the past have been novelty computers with lots of flashing lights for telling the stars or something like that, or the sham scam devices which pretend to diagnose your body via laptops. And those of you who subscribe to the Skeptic Journal from Australia, in the latest issue, released only a month or so ago, I feature those shonky quack machines in a report about Mind, Body, Spirit, Mind, Body, Wallet. And finally, we go all the way back to 1967. On the 3rd of December, again in the pages of the Sydney Morning Herald, Sydney has a new craze. Boom in Crystal Balls, Mystics, by Graham Gamby. Australia is going occult, with fortune tellers and clairvoyants doing a thriving trade, using everything from crystal balls to wire diviners. Fortune tellers are making up to $20 a session, describing the character of people and predicting their future. Well, we think $20 in 1967 was worth a lot more than $20 today. And running to an online calculator here called the Inflation Calculator from the Reserve Bank of Australia, I find this quite hard to believe. It says here that $20 in 1967 would be valued in the year 2022, at least, as $285. That's amazing. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Maybe in 1967, if somebody had $20, it could certainly buy you a lot more in those days. Nevertheless, Sydney psychologists believe the craze has been sparked by growing pressure in people's lives, leading them to try to escape from reality and seek the magical solution. One psychologist said the same uncertainty was pushing young people into taking LSD in an effort to achieve instant religion. I investigated the upsurge of the occult this week, following reports from America that religious leaders are more seriously concerned about a retreat from the church to the world of spirits and prophecies. Twirl's wire. I found that the world of crystal gazers here is shrouded in man-made mystery, and few of the prophets willing to speak about their trade. But I learnt. One man is using tarot cards, a centuries-old fortune-telling system, to predict the future. He operates only on an introduction basis and charges a fee. A woman, who is consulted by many of the big names in Sydney show business, makes predictions after receiving flashes about people. An elderly woman, whose charges are very small, uses numerology, palmistry, cards, and teacups to make predictions. Her system uses the colour of the eyes, a little mathematics, and left palm, and a pack of cards. An immigrant clairvoyant, whose charges are among the highest in Sydney, twirls a piece of wire in his hands to receive messages. An increasing number of women in the western suburbs attend seances in an effort to speak with the spirit world. The American report quoted Mr. Kenneth H. Wood, an analyst of religious affairs, as saying the upsurge was a clear indication that church institutions were not dealing with human concern about the supernatural. Well, there we are, just a little grab bag of interesting bits and pieces to do with the paranormal, the supernatural, psychics, and so on, gathered from thankfully, the kept newspapers, the digitised newspapers from Australian history. And for some reason, with that last story, right next to the story is a picture of a model putting on a pair of boots. Why? I really don't know. But you don't need to put on a pair of boots to enjoy the many wonders, the many interesting items you'll discover if you go to, for example, Trove, Now, there are many other online newspaper archives, and many of them are subscriptions. You need to sign up and pay a fee, probably a small fee, but a fee nevertheless. However, the Trove archives are free. They deal mostly with Australia, of course, but they are free. And it really doesn't matter where you are in the world, because when you go to Trove or similar archives, you never know what you might find.
Hello, this is Maynard speaking to you from my shirt. Did you know that you can listen to the Skeptic Zone on YouTube? That's right, the Skeptic Zone's on the internet now. Sounds crazy, but it's true. I checked. You can also hear 40 logical fallacies with Michelle Bickersmar and funny sketches with Richard Saunders and a host of other skeptics, and some that aren't. There's one that's not skeptical at all. They're totally incredulous about the whole thing. Want short bursts of skepticism? We have a TikTok channel covering things like talking to the dead. Hello? No, still nothing. Spoon bending and astrology. That's right, I was born under the sign of the photocopier. Looking for UFOs? Aren't we all? Hello? Then click on the link to watch the UFO movie They Don't Want You to See. They don't want you to see it. That's right, and I've spoken to them, and they said it wasn't them, they said it was someone else. But stuff them. I'm going to click on the link and see it anyway. Oh, no. Oh, imagine my disappointment when I found out it was Brian Dunning. He's like the Jar Jar Binks of skepticism. Looking for UFOs? Oh, done that bit. All these and more are on the homepage at skepticzone.tv. Also, you can visit me, Maynard, at maynard.com.au for my adventures. For my alleged adventures, online video specials and free downloads. Yep, like a free, a free something. Like a free thing that arrives in your mailbox. Like a free catalogue it's as interesting as a free catalogue in your mailbox you didn't ask for. Online video specials and free downloads like the printable Maynard calendar for all of 2024. September's my favourite month. Yes, spend every month with me, or put it on the back of the toilet door of someone you don't like. I don't know.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast, and thank you to everybody who's been involved with the show right from the beginning. The original co-host, Stefan Soika. I might have to catch up with Stefan once I'm back in Australia. And of course, we remember those reporters who are no longer with us. Original reporter Miko Wallahan and Shelley Stocken. And sadly, so many other people over the years who have been on the Skeptic Zone or part of the Skeptic Zone, influenced the Skeptic Zone. I think of course, James the Amazing Randy. And when I started this show, there were two other original Skeptic Zone cats who are no longer with us. And I know that it's very difficult to lose a special little cat friend. In other news, Brian Dunning, who you heard briefly earlier in the show. Thank you, Brian, for those wonderful words of encouragement. I'm delighted to say that his movie, the UFO movie They Don't Want You to See, has now passed 500,000 views on YouTube. I guess whoever they are failing because people are seeing the movie. Now, a couple of episodes ago, you might remember I was talking in the Trove segment about a TV show from the early 80s called Healers, Quacks, or Mystics. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be interesting to see that show? Well, listener Mark Dawson has found it. He's found the show. I will add a link to that in this week's show notes, and probably on the show notes of the original episode too. If you want to see Healers, Quacks, or Mystics as broadcast on Australian television, all about alternative medicine and so-called healers, then just click that link. Thank you, Mark. And a reminder, now that this podcast has reached 800 episodes, it wouldn't have reached 100, even without the help and support of listeners just like you, people who subscribe via Patreon or PayPal at skepticzone.tv. And it's because of those people that we all have the Skeptic Zone after all these years. And speaking of the Skeptic Zone after all these years, so many stories, so many interviews, so many topics. If you go to skepticzone.tv and click at the top the episodes link, on the top of the next page you'll find a search box. And you can type in your topic of choice and it will search through 800 episodes of the Skeptic Zone and see if it can find a reference for you, an interview or a report or something like that. And finally, on the show notes for this week's episode, you'll find a link to Skepticamp coming up at gorgeous Airies Inlet in Victoria. I had the pleasure of going to the last Skepticamp in that neck of the woods, and it was simply one of the happiest and most wonderful weekends I've spent. Surf Coast Skepticamp, link in this week's show notes. But for this week, until episode 801, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Oakland, California.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
So take it away, Susan Gerbic, for the dice game for Skeptic Zone 800.
Dice
200
game
and you're 800.
800. Well, it's not the 800th dice game. It's just the 800th episode of the Skeptic Zone, which is so awesome because we're playing trivia. And this is our 200th game. So very cool. Okay, so I'm going to pick up a die. I have 3 die here. 2 of these 3 dies you gave me, Richard Saunders.
Probably
here
did.
at this Catnip Corners, my home. So we have a black die with 6 on it. We have a white die with 6 numbers on it. And we have a 10-sided die that has 10 numbers on it. Imagine that. So let's roll the white die. No, we're going to roll the black die, 6-sided die first. All right. So everybody put your numbers in the little chat box. And all those of you at home who are playing along, give me your mental powers. I want to know what number between 1 and 6. Somebody gave an 8. Come on now, no 8s.
That was just for fun.
Adrienne. So between 1 and 6, what the number is going to be. How am I going to do this so you guys can see, so you know I'm not cheating when I roll?
We trust you, Susan. You can just roll it and we trust you.
Well, you guys are silly.
What if they're all 5s every
I
single
know.
time?
What if they're all 5s? Nobody's going to believe me.
Sometimes that happens.
Apparently it happened once. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, it did. In reality, it did happen once, yes.
So, of course, I'm guessing 5. So here we go.
And for the record, I'm guessing 2.
It's a 1.
A 1.
You got it.
Who
Gail
got
and
it?
I got
Kyle
it.
got it.
Everybody else did too.
I was
else got it?
close.
Gail got it. Janine got it.
I was within 6.
I guess all
Ron,
three.
you
One,
guessed 4.5. What is it? If you thought it was a back off.
Well, you never said integers.
Oh, Kevin says 1 for. Oh wow! Look at that.
1,
He's
1,
got that.
and I said 9 for the
1,
10-sided
1, 9.
die.
He says, okay. So that was
All right.
1. All right.
Well,
So
another
let's go
one.
let's go to the white die. This has got 6 numbers on it. See how
Another
it
one.
goes.
Come on, another one.
I'm going to say 5.
Ooh, sneaky Pete. Okay. All right, everybody's in. There goes Ron. Okay. Ben. Okay. I say 5. Here we go. Ready? What is it?
5.
It's a 5. I didn't even look.
Time to Psychic.
Okay. So we have a 1, we have a 5, and now we have the very fancy pants. This is a fancy pants die that has 10 on it. And it's black with these little, really pretty blue numbers on here.
So like a
Everybody listening,
dodecahedron or
can
something
you guys
like that?
make sure you give us your numbers here? All right.
9.
I'm guessing 5.
9.
Ready?
Oh, fancy.
Here we go. Everybody in?
You have a look. Just look.
6.
6.
I don't think nobody guessed 6.
It's upside down.
Wait, Carl, or Cat did.
I think 6 is a fraudulent elector.
It's an upside down 9.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan, for doing the dice game for episode 800.
Did anybody get it?
Yes.
Congratulations
Cat
on
did.
episode 800.
Got them all? Congratulations, Richard Saunders. Thank you for allowing us to participate in episode 800. I'm very thrilled for you. On our 200th game.